Hey, Coolest Backers, Ryan here. I just wanted to first start with a thank you. Appreciate your time and taking the energy and time out of your day to listen to us here, and also for all the questions that have been submitted over this last week. Today, our goal here is to really dive in and answer these questions. It's a challenge over these last 40 plus updates as we're committed to sharing the process of what it takes to actually take an idea on the Kickstarter platform, share it with millions of people, and have 60 plus thousand people back it and help bring it to life. The biggest piece of this process is that Kickstarter is very different than a store, because the Coolest Cooler didn't exist before this campaign, and our goal has been to share the journey along the way. And we really do, and I specifically, in fact the entire team here, we understand that we would all love to have every coolest in everyone's hands at this point. And because that hasn't happened, it's very frustrating for all of you who haven't yet received your coolest. It's extra doubly frustrating for us, of course, to hear your frustration and not have your coolest in hand. And so really my goal is to share with you in a bigger way, in a more detailed way, really what's going on with Coolest, where we're at, and share with you that this process is ongoing and we're moving forward, and we will get everyone's coolest shipped out to you. The snapshot for today is that it's taking longer than expected, but ultimately, as we focused from the very beginning, quality has been our #1 goal, and making the very best Coolest Cooler possible and getting it to you is our commitment. So the plan today for this Hangout is to share with you the questions that have come in, and we've basically taken the hundreds of questions and we've grouped them. A lot are very similar, and so we've grouped them basically into sort of a general question format, other ones around shipping and production, and then other questions around fundraising. And so let's go ahead and sort of just jump right into it here. One of the big questions that we've seen is people asking, well, why didn't you just manufacture the coolest that you showed in the video? And our frustration generally around these the additional costs that have come up. And I think what's important to note and to mention again here is that the Coolest Cooler in that video was a one-of-a-kind prototype, and that prototype cost me around $15,000 to get that prototype made. That prototype showed the proof of concept and had all the functionality of the final coolest, but ultimately it's not a scalable design. It's a industrial design, and there's still so much more engineering that needed to go into making sure the product really lived up to all of our dreams. And when this campaign started with the original funding goal of around $50,000, and when we ended up at around 26,000% greater than expected, there's certainly been additional complications. But we've looked at it from day one as what are the opportunities to make this the best coolest, and that's really where we doubled down and made sure we could deliver that high quality coolest that was promised. And when you're bringing a prototype to the manufacturing process, it is a long process. And with the complexity of this product, even with all of the fantastic consultants and very knowledgeable engineering team and factories to help us move forward at record speed, it's still a challenge. I mean, when you're raising these engineering costs and as you're getting the final pricing for the product, as you're putting it together, at the early stages, you simply can't get that information. The factory, before you get a final quote, is basically, they need to see all of the engineering drawings for all of the parts so they can estimate how much it's going to cost to put everything together. And it's not until later in that process that you really go through this. And it's typically hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to go through this process. And for a product as complicated as ours, it certainly was in the multiple millions to get through that entire process. And that's the engineering, the design, the setup, and then all of the infrastructure needed to build the company that can deliver these coolest and make sure we have the certification for the 70, for all of the backers around the world, and make sure we verified that your blender's not just going to work the first time you have it, but it's going to hold up, on the 5th year of adventures in the outdoors. So that's the challenge. Ultimately, that first prototype is a long way from the final delivered product. When it shows up on your door, you'll realize that, hopefully, you'll realize and agree that the wait was worth it, and you'll be satisfied in the long haul, because that's what we promised. Another challenge for bringing a product of this scale and complexity to the world so quickly is that, frankly, it's hard to negotiate the best deals when you're trying to push the shortest timeline, and everyone in a very public way sees and thinks that you have, won the lottery with this, $13 million, and it's a challenge to negotiate the best deals early on. Those of you who have tried to have experience in manufacturing other products may recognize the challenge if the people you're talking to knew exactly how much you had allotted to the project. So that's another little hurdle. Let's see. The next question that came up a lot is also around the sale of coolers on Amazon. And let's see, how is it that you've been able to fund the production of coolers for sale on Amazon, but cannot fund the production of backers coolers? And I really wish that I had done a better job communicating this more clearly at the time. Back when Amazon Launchpad came to us in summer, they wanted to buy coolers and sell them through the Amazon Launchpad page. And we recognized that every coolest cost more than each backer had given us for the manufacturing process. And so we would need to raise additional money, and this was a great opportunity. We also expected that we would, by the time the Amazon Launchpad had their units, we would have fulfilled and delivered all the backers' coolers. So when we committed to the Amazon order, it's important to recognize that it was not the backers' funds that paid for these units. This was an order from the Amazon Launchpad that is for their inventory. They purchased this inventory. The profits from that purchase have helped subsidize the cost of manufacturing for everyone else's coolers. It's helped move the business forward. And in fact, at that time, we were able to reinvest some of those funds into additional tooling, which we expected would further the production of everyone else's, would further speed up the production of the remaining coolest inventory. Unfortunately, the challenges with the delays this last fall and the motor strike and our slower than optimistically expected ramp up speed, those delays further delayed the production of our backers coolers. But with that commitment to Launchpad's inventory, they had the units. In fact, the units that are still selling on Amazon are the Amazon Launchpad inventory, and it has nothing to do with coolest selling them on Amazon. So until Amazon sells through the inventory, they'll still be available on the Launchpad. But I think it's important to remember that when there was so much frustration around the timing of Amazon, and we were looking to bring in additional sales that could help subsidize further coolers, the frustration and the message from the backers coming out saying we're very frustrated around this caused us to say, you know what, we need to look at other ways that can scale even faster. And we stopped selling any further pre-orders or sales on our website. So I think that's important to note that we're doing our best here as we move through this process to engage and listen to the backer community, because we wouldn't be here without you. And this journey is something that we're both on. When a product is backed on Kickstarter, it's not as simple as a buy now button. There's not a way to support today and get your product tomorrow. And it really is about making something that wouldn't exist any other way and going on this journey together. So that's the key difference. And that's why the units that are on Amazon are not, it's not about coolest, the business selling them there. This is Amazon Launchpad's inventory. All right, so it looks like The next group of questions here, there's a lot of questions around the shipping and the production timeline for Coolest right now, and that's what I'd like to get into. So we have a number of questions that are general questions around the shipping tool, and this sort of and the confusion around the batch numbers and the timing. And I think it's important to remember that when in January, we expected that by the end of February, we would have our additional funding in place and we would know the timeline and speed in which we would be manufacturing coolers. And so we also compiled and broke down all of the remaining backer coolers into these batches so we could organize when exactly they would ship. There's been a lot of frustration that we've heard around people not truly understanding why they haven't received a cooler when they have an early batch number. And that really comes down to geography, color, and the process in which we have to ship our coolers. They're not something you can just put a stamp on and send across the country. It ships. It's around a 39-pound package when it ships fully loaded and fully protected in its shipping carton. And so each of these units get brought in from overseas. They come down to Portland. We stick in the speakers. We put in extra batteries, speakers, plates, pitchers, any of the extra goodies that people have backed. And then those units get shipped out, get put on a semi, and they go to one of 8 zones. And when they get into each of these 8 zones, the UPS system takes over from there, and they get shipped the last mile. And what we've done with this batch process is break those out into about 78 different batches. And when you use our lookup tool, you can find out where you are in that batch. Our goal was to let people see what batch they're in, and then as more information came in, be able to share when those would ship. We thought we would be able to at least share the earliest folks when they would get their units, but ultimately the production is tied to funding, and without the knowledge for what the funding, without the funding completed, our knowledge for when production will resume is pretty limited. But at least we wanted to share the process of what we knew at the time, which is here's how everyone will receive their Coolest. This is the order. And you can use that tool to find out effectively where you are in line. The next question is, well, are you producing right now? And can you resume production without additional funds? Right now, today, we're not producing units. We'd expected to resume production right after Chinese New Year. And that was, again, tied to our expectation of sort of having a funding partner identified by that point. Because that hasn't happened, we have stopped. We have decided not to ramp back up production until we have a clear path. The big reason for that is that while we could produce a limited number of additional units, it wouldn't be a path forward that would get every single backer their Coolest. And so we're taking the slower, more cautious route, which is making sure we have a path that gets every backer their Coolest at the fastest speed. And this is the route that needs to happen. When you ramp back up, what rate can you manufacture Coolest? Well, we have tooling capacity that is pretty significant, especially for a product of this size. We can make between 400 and 1,300 units a day, and that's about 6 days a week, so up to around 7,800 units per week. There is some ramp-up speed, as you can imagine, between making 400 and 1,300, and the timing for that, whether it takes between 1 and let's say maybe 3 or possibly 4 weeks to go from the slowest speed to the maximum speed. Well, that's still going to be a process that we'll work through with our factory and our QA and sourcing partners, and we're all on board for making that happen as quickly as possible. So the next question is, how many backers have received their Coolest and how many are left to ship? We get this a lot. This is actually second only to some of the more frustrating posts that we see out there, where whenever there's a challenge with this campaign, we have people jump on social media saying this is a scam, telling everybody that is still waiting on their coolest, that they'll never get it. And it's really, I don't know a better way to say it, but it's really frustrating and disheartening for all of us, because in that window of time between the end of July, when we started producing, and about the middle or so of October, maybe the very beginning of November, when the motor strike shut us down, in that window of time, we made and have shipped about 20,000 units to our backers. And that is not insignificant. That's a pretty big number when you look at the logistics behind that. Now, we still have around 36,000 remaining orders from pledges that we still have to fulfill. But it's also very important to remember that for those 36,000 units, we have made down payments or even partial payments for all of those. And so that's part of the process that with this additional funding round will help us move forward more quickly to get the rest of these made. In fact, for most of these, we even have inventory on hand that will let us go even more quickly. But that's where we sit right now as far as coolest. When is the first batch shipping? At this moment, we don't have an exact date. It really depends on the speed of our fundraising. We've explored a number of options. In fact, we've had a significant interest in the coolest to this point. And we've had, even, in fact, with this last round of publicity for this last week, we've had we've had a lot of additional interest from the outside. So it's very exciting for us, but it's also a very frustrating process, just how much longer this takes than we would ordinarily have expected. And I guess that's a key part of this Kickstarter campaign, and really any new process, is that you plan for a process, you expect how long things will take, you talk to other people who have been through the process and they give you estimates, and that's what you base your timeline on. But ultimately, we're a very unusual company. I mean, most companies that are seeking outside investment don't have 13 million in revenue before they've shipped, before they're in any retail locations, and effectively even before the product is made. So we've gone through a lot of growth in that time frame, and there's tremendous future opportunity for us in the cooler market. But ultimately, the length of time that it takes for this fundraising process to happen is not something that we can forecast. We're just moving forward every day and exploring all the options that come in. Am I going to get my coolest for this summer season? Well, I'll tell you, we're doing our best to make that happen. In fact, we're with the fundraising, depending on how quickly that comes in. We've worked with our factories. And they're very, very flexible and nimble, and we can ramp up very quickly. And it really is going to come down to more of an issue of how quickly we can ramp up production and get everyone their coolest. And we're exploring other options that may also help move that along even quicker. Let's see here. How frequently will batches be shipping? Shipping. How frequently will the batches be shipping, basically, once we get started? So these 78 batches that are out there are broken into, I believe it's loads between around 300 to 600 units. And they're effectively, I think we have them scheduled on the low end, it's around 3 per week at the beginning, and then ramping up to 10 or so a week moving forward. But there is room to possibly speed that along even further at the full ramp up in production speed. All right, so let's see, international backers. Why are international backers shipping last when we paid $100 more? Well, this is a fair question, and I understand, especially as people are using this logistics tool and trying to figure out when they're going to get theirs. And there's a number of reasons that we've effectively grouped our international shipments last. The first reason is that we have backers from about 72 different countries, and the process to ship products into each of these specific countries is logistically very complicated. There's certification, there's delivery requirements, and customs issues to look at, and so it's very complicated on one hand. It's also very expensive. In fact, some of these countries We've not looked into the precise shipping for each backer in each area of each country, but for example, we found that in Australia, on one side of Australia, it was, significantly less than $100 to ship a unit to, where on the other side of the country, it was more than double. So it's expensive. And the other part is that as we're shipping our coolest to our backers, we need to make sure that our QA process, our quality assurance process for the coolest, is at the very highest level. And that's going to be something that happens as we move forward. We've got great quality on the coolest right now. That's an area that I'm so proud of, and we haven't really given enough time in the backer updates to share how great the coolest is from a manufacturing process, but we're really excited. We've tracked every warranty issue along the way, and everything from issues of a drain plug, or a battery not performing as expected, or any of these issues. We've tracked these things, and then we've worked back with the factory and tried to do a root cause analysis to see what may be causing this issue, and how can we drive the problem down and bring quality up. And we have brought our warranty issues down to a very, very small percentage. But when you're shipping units internationally, as you can imagine, if we ship a coolest and during the production process, it gets banged into something and ships with a dent in the side, now we need to potentially pay to ship that unit back to the US and ship a new coolest there. And it's just an expensive process. So we need to make sure that for every unit that we're shipping at this most expensive shipping rate, we need to make certain that the quality is at the highest level and that we minimize any possibility of warranty claims. And those are the key issues on why we focused on looking at the shipping process later for our international backers. Another concern people seem to have as you're waiting, let's see, will we receive the same quality coolest as those that have already shipped to other backers? Absolutely. In fact, when you back this project, the commitment for this project has always been to make and deliver the best, coolest cooler possible. And that's what we have done. We've not made the same business decisions that potentially an existing company would make. We're committed to this journey to bring into the world not just a cooler with a blender or a speaker or a USB charger, but something that comes together with all of these pieces and works at the highest level. And we've already made and paid for most of the remaining components. And in fact, since we started shipping our first units, there have been a number of ongoing small improvements since the coolest came off the line. In fact, when we start back up, almost all of these new coolists will have our new and improved drain plug. Effectively all the original coolists, the drain plugs work absolutely fine. But this new drain plug is a screw-on plug, which should be even greater quality, and it's a slightly bigger size, so it could potentially drain a little faster. These aren't big issues, but this is the, kind of this in the weeds focus on the details that make the coolest cooler great. And absolutely, you will get the same highest level of coolest. The other big reason why we're focused on maintaining and building this quality, as we kind of switch into some of the fundraising questions, is really that this is the opportunity for us after all of, our backers are satisfied. We're all so grateful, me especially, of your support in this campaign and letting me take this idea and make it into my dream product and get it out to all of you folks who believed in me and believed in the team and have given us your time and patience as we move through this process. But ultimately, there's a tremendous opportunity for a coolest cooler in the market right now. Coolers have seen something like I think it's about a 60+% growth by dollar sales last year alone. It's the #1 camping product by sales. And you see competitive premium coolers with retail or with revenue in excess of $400 million a year. This is absolutely something that a investor and people who are interested in in supporting and investing in new businesses are very interested in. And this is what we're hearing from, from our outside potential investment partners. So people are asking, how much money do you need? Don't give us any BS, just tell us. And really, to get the rest of the backer units made will be, so let's see, I guess in a bigger picture, our fundraising goal for this bigger picture raise is around $15 million. What that does is around a third of that goes to producing and shipping the rest of the coolists that we need to get out. Around a third of that, actually a little bit more, goes towards inventory to ramp up for this next year. And then the remainder of that goes for sort of fees for the raise and future product development and building out the team and the staff. That's the focus for this bigger picture raise that we've been looking at. Now, over the last even several weeks, we've had a lot of interest in from smaller groups with some very creative solutions, and it's moving forward. And I think that's the big piece of it that is so important to take advantage of. If you take nothing else away from this, is that our fundraising process is going along quite well. It's just that right now it's not complete. And I understand that that can raise some, I guess, nervousness from our backers who are really not familiar with this process, or who are potentially more, focused on, and thinking that each of these pieces of bad news means that they're never going to get my coolest. And I think the big point is that it's just part of the process. It's unfortunate that not every single backer has their coolest right now, but we're getting a lot of interest from outside groups. And if you can hang tight and stick with us on the rest of the ride here, and then we'll get everyone their coolest. That's our goal, that's our commitment, and that's exactly what we're focused on. And I think that's really the big nervousness and the piece of the puzzle, that when we do put these updates out and people are getting frustrated by what they just see as another delay, yes, it is a delay. It does take longer than we're expecting, than we'd initially projected. But there's so much complexity into bringing a project of this scale out to so many people with a focus on such high quality and speed, that it is a challenge to accurately project these things. But the biggest part is that we're moving forward. This is part of the process, but we're all along for the journey that is bringing the coolest out to everyone's house and letting you have a great time with it. And that's what's happening right now. Let's see. The next question is, well, what happens if you don't find outside investment? If you don't, will we lose out? That is absolutely not anything that we're considering right now. It's really way too early to speculate around any sort of worst case scenario. We're moving through this fundraising process. We're not giving up. We're not even considering giving up. We're not anywhere close to thinking about giving up. We're very excited about our opportunities, and we're moving forward with our fundraising plans. All right, so there's another group of some questions here, and the most interesting part of this next part is something that we've kind of kicked around for a little while, and it's around something called equity fundraising. And we've had a number of people who have been very supportive, reaching out and saying, how can I help? And in fact, someone said, you should open this up to your Kickstarter investor, your Kickstarter audience, and give us the chance to help support the project and give us a discount on this, similar to and run an equity-based crowdfunding. And effectively, that's what we've decided to do. We're using the Circle Up platform, and we've opened up a round of equity fundraising that basically gives backers, it gives accredited investors, and that's an important thing to note, accredited investors an opportunity to get involved and invest in Coolest, rather than just leave this for the institutional investors. And this is an ongoing process. This is something that we're really excited about. And we see this as an alternative and additional path that can help further speed up the process. But just as importantly, it's about fairness. I mean, we are a crowd-funded company, and we've been looking for ways to be able to give our backers an opportunity to not just get a great coolest cooler out of this process, but effectively to have, you know, a stake in the company if that's what they're interested in, and help us be able to, you know, move through the rest of the manufacturing process even faster, and to have an upside in the company as we move forward in the years to come. And we have, you know, tremendous, personally as a product developer, there's plenty of other ideas and areas that we're excited that Coolest could move into moving forward. But right now, we're still so laser focused on the Coolest cooler and getting this out to all of our backers and exploring what can happen after that. So those are the key discussions that we've had. Those are the key questions that are coming in. And if you've written in or you have a question that wasn't mentioned in here, please feel free to reach out to our support team directly, support@coolest.com. We'll be happy to share that information with you. I'll be posting a link to this Hangout online, so you'll also be able to, if for some reason you wanted to, go back and listen to this again and again. We'll also be able to share it with the backers who weren't able to come in here and join us. So I really, again, want to thank you all, not just for your time today, but for your support in bringing the Coolest this far. We're tremendously excited about where we're going. We're tremendously committed to getting everyone their Coolest, and we're so excited about the future possibilities, and we really do appreciate all the kind words and support that you've shared with us. Hopefully today's Hangout has been able to answer a lot of the questions that maybe didn't come through as well as we'd had hoped on the updates through the Kickstarter page. And hopefully after listening to these answers, you'll feel more comfortable with where we're at and moving forward. So again, all the best to you, and thanks so much.